Hello and welcome back to another little, hopefully, sort of how-to tutorial guide type video. I've got asked quite a few times over the last few months, is there any advice you can give to owners of new motorhomes or new campervans or people that have upgraded from a smaller one to a bigger one, etc. So I've put together a list of what I think would be the most important things or the most valuable lessons I think I can pass on, and most of them are to do with driving. Now, to aid me, I bought some props and I'm going to demonstrate the use of these props when you go past vehicles or vehicles come past you, and how that can affect the stability of your motorhome or campervan. So bear with me, because if nothing else, I might teach you how to suck eggs. So the first thing we're going to talk about is carriageway ruts. And ruts would be when a vehicle goes down the carriageway, and then probably heavy goods vehicles, and they basically create ruts in the road. They're normally uphill, and as they keep repeatedly going down the same part of the road, and the vehicle's weight and engine is driving and dragging away at that tarmac, it creates ruts in the road. Some people call them tram lines as well. Now obviously that really doesn't affect most people, because most people stay out of where the trucks are anyway. But when you travel in your slow vehicle, you tend to stick in the inner lane or lane one. Now the first thing you're going to notice is the width between the wheels of the trucks, and then you compare it to your motorhome or campervan, and you see they're slightly different. So what happens is that your campervan then drives over those ruts, and it gets dragged between the two sides, and it's constantly twitching left and right because it's trying to fit in one rut, and then the other wheel catches the other rut, and then it throws you out again and try and catch you in the other rut. You may have experienced it and never known what the problem is, and this is the problem. Now you're saying, right, okay then John, so there's these ruts and my campervan can't fit in the same ruts as the other vehicles because of the wheel difference. Why does that matter? It's just stability really. Like I say, you'll be driving down the road happy as anything, and all of a sudden the rut will catch it and it'll drag you in, and it's keeping you in there, and you'll go to turn out a little bit and then you'll drag in the other rut, which will keep you moving around again. And you might get dragged between the two ruts, and your vehicle will seem really unstable. And if you make an overcorrection on the steering wheel too much, you could actually collide with another vehicle at the side of you, because you'll be thrown out of the rut with such a force, if the rut's deep, that it could actually make you move lanes on the motorway. So just bear that in mind. If you see the ruts or you feel what it is that I'm talking about, then please just get out of that lane. Right, now the next one, again we're going to talk about trucks, because you know, I bought one. And they are to scale as well, if you notice. So, you know, I was kind of making sure I bought the right ones. They've already got a home to go to as well after they're done. So, you know, they won't be staying in a van if everyone's thinking about the weight. I will get to the weight as well in a minute. The next one is all about wind. Even if it's not windy on a motorway, when your vehicle comes past another flat-sided, high-sided vehicle, the air that passes between the two starts to move faster. So the air that passes between there starts to move faster. So as you come past the vehicle, you will be sucked in towards it, mainly because the air is traveling faster between you two vehicles, and it's trying to do that. It's trying to suck you together. Now the other problem is, as you come past that vehicle, it at a certain point will be pushing air out. As you come past the vehicle, it'll actually kick the back end of you out slightly, because you won't have that suction anymore, and the air that it's trying to push around will create a little vortex there and push you out. So when you're overtaking a high-sided vehicle, try and do so with as much distance as possible between you two, and that'll reduce that effect, and you can overtake safely and then pull back in. So that's another one. Now it works the same way too. If you're in this lane and the truck's coming past, all of a sudden you'll feel a little bit of push at the back because of its headwind is pushing at the back, and it's making your back end trip out like that. But then once it comes to the side of you, it's going to suck you in, and he's having the same effect. He's just bigger, so he won't feel it. It's going to suck you in a little bit until he goes past you, and then at a certain point where he goes past you, obviously, oh, his tire's fallen off. Let's put his tire back on. It's probably because it's a remold and they fall off a lot. So yeah, once you come past like that, he's going to come past, and then it'll all be over. So another dangerous thing, and I haven't got another thing to experiment with, but if you do get another vehicle coming, a high-sided vehicle coming this side of you, then all three of you are going to feel it. You're going to feel a push. I don't want to sound crass at this point, but you're going to feel that you're being sucked and blown at the same time. I had to say it, because on one side you're going to be sucked towards this vehicle, on the other side you're going to be blown at the back end all of a sudden, and then sucked at that side as well. So there's going to be a sucky campervan sandwich, motorhome sandwich. So just bear in mind that other high-sided vehicles that you move past or move past you are going to create these little differences in air pressure where you will move towards them, or they'll move towards you, or once you go past them, or they're coming past you at certain points, it could well kick you out of the lane, nice sort of groove that you're in, and just wiggle the van a little bit. So just be wary of that. Obviously you're in a really big vehicle, and the slightest bit of movement of air around you makes a big difference to you. So I wouldn't say, you know, white knuckle ride or anything like that, but try and keep a good grasp of the steering wheel when you're around other vehicles on the road. Now the next one again is to do with wind. So this one's to do with the overhang behind the rear wheel. The more overhang behind the rear wheel, the more you're going to be susceptible to crosswinds. So when I said before about a truck coming past and you're going past and it flicks you out a little bit because of the wind, if it comes behind you and does that, then you're going to get the back end pushing out. It's a really weird phenomenon, but essentially it's the pendulum effect. And there's two things I'm going to talk about with this as well. But the pendulum effect means that this overhang, the further away from that the wind is, the more force it'll have on that axle and that. Now bear in mind, in a motorhome you've got more weight over this axle than you have there. So if you look at that one, it's right at the front, there's very little weight over it. Whereas this one, there's tons of weight because both sides of that are over that axle. So any bit of wind on this is going to cause that to happen. So just bear in mind, crosswinds, if you're going over a high bridge, or if you're going over high areas like mountains and moorland and stuff like that, when it gets windy, you're going to feel the wind. The easiest resolution to all these issues of movement of wind and everything else as you're traveling around is just to travel that bit slower and to have a better grasp of the steering wheel, and basically you'll be more able to control what's going on them. It's a bit like opening a door from the actual hinge. You need a lot of force to open or close the door from the hinge, whereas if you go to where the door handle is at the other end of the door frame, it's far easier to open it. And it's that pendulum effect. If you think the hinge is the rear axle, and you're basically got the door here, there's less force required to push that back end out. Now the next thing is obviously about weight of vehicles as well. What does that mean? Well, in your vehicle you'll see an unladen weight plate and a laden weight. So a maximum weight would be 3.5 ton, but an unladen weight, so when it came out the factory without anything else inside it, it might say something like 2.8 tons or 2800 or something like that. If it says over 3.05 or 3050, if it says under that, then you're all right. But if it says over that, then on dual carriageways, single carriageways and things like that, you are limited. So if you've looked at your weight plate and the unladen weight is over 3.05 tons or 3050 kilograms, you've got speed restrictions that you've got to adhere to. And that could be single carriageway, you can only do 50. A dual carriageway, you can only do 50 or 60, depends on the speed limit of the dual carriageway. But on motorways, you normally find you can carry on doing 70 just like the other vehicles. But you should be aware of that. And most good sat-navs will actually warn you. So the sat-navs where you can enter the vehicle's weight, height, length and width, they'll actually warn you. So you might think, well, I'm doing 60 down a single road here and it says national speed limit. Why is my sat-nav beeping at me to say I'm going over my speed limit? and that's because the sat-nav's obviously thinking that you're only supposed to be doing 50, so that's worth checking too. I'll put the links below to the government website where it talks about unladen weights, what those weights are exactly, and the types of variable speed limits depending on the unladen weight and what type of road that you're travelling on, so you can check it out yourself. Now, as we talk about weights again and pendulum effects and things like that, is about the weighting and loading of your vehicle. And what I'd really say is try and load everything you possibly can that's heavy between the two axles. Try and leave anything light at the back and up at the top as well. So try not to put anything heavy at the top of the van in the cupboards, and try not to put anything heavy at the back. What you may find on some vans, they've actually got the water tank in the back and things like that. And I know it might sound bad, especially if you're full-time, but try not to carry a full load of your water tank around with you all the time, just because of that unbalanced weight at the back. All you're going to happen is, if it's windy, you're going to have more unstable weight. And the other thing you may see is that your van might be sagging down at the back a little bit and the front wheels are a little bit up, and that generally means that you've got more weight than you should have, or that the vehicle's comfortable with, over the back of the axle. Now, one way around that, like I say, is to carry less water in the back and always drive with a full fuel tank. In fact, I've noticed in my van that my vehicle feels far more stable, and it's even got less rattles if I've got a full fuel tank. It doesn't matter how much water I've got, and my water tank is actually in front of the axle, so it's centre weighted, if you like. But yeah, I've just noticed if I carry a full tank of fuel, the vehicle drives much better, and yeah, just get less rattles. Obviously, I spoke about this in my other video, so I'll link back to that one about tyres and wheels. Obviously, we've got different off-road or all-terrain tyres, and we've got different wheels as well. Just bear in mind about that. That is a really big thing. You might see a lot of blown out tyres on caravans and motorhomes at the side of the road, and it's usually because the tyres aren't suitable, or they're not rated to be suitable for the weight they carry in, or things like that. So just bear in mind there are limits to how much weight you can put on most tyres. As awful as it sounds, when I bought this van, the tyres for it were not rated to the weight of the vehicle they sold me, and I had to point that out to a dealer, that even they didn't know. No one had checked the tyres. So it's a really odd thing that a lot of people don't know about, but yeah, just make sure that the tyres are rated, and it'll have a number on the side like 106, 98 or 115 or something like that, and it says load rated, and it'll give you a kilogram load rated. But like I say, if you go to my other video, wheels and tyres video, it talks about load rating of tyres and how to watch out for them, and load rating of wheels as well. If you've got steel wheels, you're probably all right, but if you've got fancy alloys, it's worth checking that they're load rated for the actual load you're going to be carrying, because let's face it, most of us in our campervan and motorhomes are going to be pretty much close to that weight limit all the time. We're not going to be like a delivery van where we've got a few boxes in the back. Now, the other thing I spoke about the overhang there, as you're coming up to a junction and you turn right, that is going to happen. The back end is going to kick out, mainly because it's further back than the axle. So if you look at the truck, for example, if the truck turns right, it's just going to turn right, because there's very little behind that rear axle. But if you turn right, and this works left or right as well, but if you turn there, it's going to collide. So that's something else to bear in mind as well. The overhang at the back is really something you need to pay attention to, and obviously the easiest way of that is just give yourself more distance so that when you turn, that overhang isn't going to collide with everything. But it is something to basically keep an eye on when you're turning left and right mirrors. Just check on what's around you so that you don't collide with it, really. And that is just about the distance between your rear axle and the back of your van. That's called the overhang. The bigger the overhang, the more pronounced that problem's going to be. Right, well, that's me finished playing with these this week. Hopefully made you think about a few things. Hopefully there are a few things that you've gone, oh, I didn't know about that, and you've picked up a few hints. If you've got any for anybody else, including me, and you think they're really good, then leave them in the comments down below. And like I say, if you've got questions regarding what I've said and you're a bit confused by them, in your comment down below asking that question, just put the timestamp. For example, if it was 7 minutes and 9 seconds, you would put 7:09, And if you type that in your comment, YouTube is clever enough that I can click on it and it'll start playing the video at that point, and then I can understand straight away what it was that you were talking about. So I hope that makes sense. Next week, on next Tuesday's video anyway, we're going to be talking about all the upgrades and changes and modifications we've made to our van and costing it up. So we're not talking about the purchase price of the van, we're talking about everything we've done to the van after we've bought it and costing it up. Just so you guys know what to expect after you've bought your van, if you want to do this, that and the other, how much it's going to cost. I'll give as much detail as possible if it's like a major weight increase or a weight decrease, so you can work that one out too. Yeah, and then we'll take it from that next week. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on Friday with Mandy. Bye bye.